Hi guys, it's Ray. So I am going to do a side-by-side with these solar colored drops. One I'm going to use Faux Rizzle UV, which I already have mixed, and I am just finishing up mixing. This is new to me, this epoxy, so this is my very first mix with it. It is super thick in this room. I don't know if this is one that just really, really needs a warmer climate or what, but this is the DIY epoxy, artisan art epoxy that came in my February subscription box. So I don't know, this is super duper thick. I have heard that it's different, but we'll see. And the other one that I already mixed is my Faux Rizzle UV Plus art resin. And I'm going to use the orange on this one, which is a 12-ounce duozie. It's the skinny can cooler slash tumbler. And I'm going to use magenta on the 20-ounce skinny. These cups are both from Maker Flo. I will put the links to everything down in the description below. Hopefully this isn't a disaster. I'm going to do one round of this now, and then hopefully tonight sometime I can get a second coat of both on here. My understanding is 2 rounds of this for a tumbler, but I'm not really sure it's necessary, but I don't really want to risk it not working. And my tumblers are prepped and spray painted. This isn't the greatest spray paint job. It is snowing like crazy here, and they did get, you know, snowflakes on them, little splatters here and there, so it happens. So this is tremendously bubbly, and it's about 70 degrees in this room right now, so it may be just way too cold for this resin. But I was excited to get this in that Resin and More box because it was one that was on my list to see how it works in my environment and my climate. So just trying to look through it to make sure it's mixed and that's just bubbles. The bubbles I'm not terribly worried with on a tumbler. They're fairly easy to remove. So, and it does appear mixed. So I'm going to go ahead and, I don't really know how well these mix in the jar. There's no, it doesn't really feel like there's movement to them. So it says 1 to 5 drops per ounce of a clear base. So I've got just, I always do that with these little bottles with rings. I'm going to go with 5 drops. That's it. And I guess mix it in thoroughly. And I did jot down how much I'm using in which resin on which cup, so I can keep track of what works, what doesn't. So I guess it looks kind of milky like that mixed, but I don't see any streaks or anything, so I'm gonna say that's good. I do want to get the lid on this because I don't know. And you see this is what it looks like now. I'm just going to set it by the window for a few minutes and see if it changes on that side. So I'm going to get my turner spinning. And I'm going to go ahead and apply this one and then move on to the next. I had intended to only mix 20 ounces for this one, or 20 mLs I ended up with about 25, so I might have a little bit extra. But I should actually be able to use all of it. I can see just the slightest hint of the pink, the magenta. But I'm gonna leave a little bit looped on the side of the cup and put that over there in the window as well. I'm sure I'm getting some light through the window, so. Oh yeah, I can see it turning in the cup. I'll show you in just a second, as soon as I'm done spreading this. Pretty neat. Solar Color Dust comes out with some of the coolest products on the market. So I'm going to do the first coat on each of these and then try and get a look at them in the light and see if they even need that second coat. But I'm thinking they're going to need the second coat. I'm also thinking that I'm probably going to put a cheat glitter over some or all of this, because it didn't occur to me that this was going to be actually clear on the base. So every imperfection on the cup I'm seeing. So if I used a cheat glitter, it should cover some of those flaws, maybe. Hopefully. So I do want to pop this glove off, but I'm going to show you real quick. That's my hand. It doesn't seem to be turning on my hand, but you can see a little bit of the color in the cup. And that's just barely getting any light in this window. So they do work. So I'm going to swap one glove, just the glove I touched that with, because I don't want to cross-contaminate the colors. And I'm going to move on to this other resin and see how this works. So their website does say this does not work in Pro Marine, which to me is weird, because it, I'm just going to put 4 drops on this one, because this has, actually I'm going to go ahead and go with 5. It has less resin than the other cup, but not by much. So, and the orange was a little paler this morning, so. Alright. So I'm going to get that mixed in. Again, this super, super thick resin. I am going to do a couple more cups with this resin today. So I think what I'm going to do is, before I do the next test, I'm going to go ahead and warm it a little bit. I wanted to test it in a mold, but these samples are pretty small. So I'm not really sure. But, and I'll come back and work on some of the bubbles on this one after I get this one done. So I'm just going to go ahead. I ended up with 20 ounces, or 20 mLs. I always say that. 20 mLs mixed for this one. Which is probably too much, because this is a smaller, much smaller koozie style. This is a koozie for all your seltzer drinks, but it also doubles as a 12-ounce tumbler. This one came with 2 lids. I did do a video when I unboxed them, so if you wanted to see that. I'm going to go ahead and put this by the window and see if I can get any kind of a change on that. pretty sure that was the orange, not the yellow. I think I could still read the label on that one. I know outside when I tested them, those two turned the least. Was the orange and the yellow. They probably require more sun than I was getting. Like right now, it's kind of looking like a vanilla cream in the window. So I'll give it another minute while I finish this up. I'm actually going to go ahead and scoot it more directly into the window. And again, this one's going to show all its flaws. So I'm going to go ahead and get these gloves off. Excuse me. I'm going to wipe my hands off with a baby wipe quick. And yes, I did work with inks without gloves on earlier. I know better. So I'm going to go ahead and hit these with the torch quick. And I don't know if these react under a UV light, and I don't know where my UV flashlight is, so I can't actually test them that way. I don't know if there's strictly a sunlight or any UV light. See, because I have so many bubbles in the spray paint itself where the snowflakes hit it, I'm having a very hard time seeing what is actually in the resin and what is the cup itself. But I think there's a ton of micro bubbles in here still. So hopefully they will work themselves out. I don't want to overheat it. Yeah, the orange isn't turning nearly as much inside. It's turning a tiny bit. I mean, it doesn't look clear like it does on the cup, but it's a good sign that it's even doing that much filtered through the window inside. So I will be back to try and test these and put a second coat on, possibly putting the cheat glitter directly into the second coat. So as a quick refresher before I go back outside to try and get some sunlight, this one has the DIY epoxy in the orange, and this one has the magenta, and this was Faux Rizzle UV. I am confident this one's going to turn, but this one I honestly don't know. It may have blocked the effect, so I'm going to run outside with them real quick. So I'm outside, and the pink one's turning a little bit better. We got a ton of snow last night, so it's difficult. Oh, the orange one might be turning a tiny bit, but the magenta is definitely turning. It's kind of difficult to see, and like I said, there is really no sun, so it's going to be a weaker effect than what it would be otherwise, but hopefully you can see where this is turning orange. The magenta is definitely turning magenta. I don't want to keep these out here in the cold too awful long. It is still snowing a little bit, but I'm going to take them back in. I'm going to do a second coat on both, so we'll get to that. Okay, I am back to put a second layer on both of these. Tons and tons of micro bubbles again today. This one's the Faux Rizzle. They'll come out, so I'm not really worried about that. This one's the DIY epoxy. I did notice that the DIY epoxy dried to the touch way slower than my standard Faux Rizzle. I had 5 cups turning that day, and this one was the only one with the Faux Rizzle. The other 4 had the DIY epoxy, and when I shut the turners off, I could take this one off if I wanted to completely, but the other 4 were still super tacky. I could have taken them off and put them on a drying rack. They were not dripping, but they were still super tacky. So I don't know if that's standard or if it's just what the temperature in the room was, but I have my orange and my magenta again. So I'm going to start with the orange. I'm going to put maybe a couple extra drops of the orange in this time. I don't want it to affect the resin. I don't want to use too much, but I want to see if I can get a little bit more of a vibrant change from that one. You can see this one's slightly magenta just from the light coming in the window itself. So I may even go another like 2 drops. I should have brought these out this morning, but I brought them out yesterday when the sun peeked out for a second after I'd done the other video, and it really didn't make that much of a difference with the orange yet, so we'll see after this coat where we're at. And I am going to put some It's Pretty Personal Girl's Best Friend cheat glitter in here. Not a ton, just a little bit to cover up any flaws or imperfections on the cup. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little layer across the top. That's plenty for that. And I'll get that mixed in. And I'm going to do the same with the magenta. Get my drops in. I know that was 10 or 12 this time. With the cheat glitter, I'll just hide any little flaws or imperfections that might be from my bad spray paint job the other day or whatever. I do notice that these drops take some of the bubbles out of the resin like the alcohol inks would. Or forces them to rise, I guess. So I'm going to get that cheat glitter in there. Okay. My faux rizzle, I know, was cold when I mixed it. That is a pretty normal response for this resin, but I'm used to dealing with it with that resin because I've been using it for 2 years now. So I'm going to get these turned on, and I'm going to get this on the cups. So I'm going to get that out of the way. Don't forget to do your bottoms if you do your bottoms. Some people don't. I do. I don't put a custom label or anything on the bottom of my tumblers. I'm not a very big fan of that. I don't like it to take away from the look of the tumbler, and I a lot of the time will put a decal that kind of goes with the rest of the tumbler's decals on the bottom, so I like to leave my bottoms open. But just a basic care instructions or simplistic logo, I don't think is terrible. As long as it doesn't contrast with the tumbler, I think it's alright. But every tumbler maker does what works for them in their business, so. Personal preference. And once I'm done with these and I move them over to the other side of the table, I am going to get them leveled a little bit better because this one did get a little bit chunky at the bottom because I didn't level them properly. My own fault. If your cup tilts down, you'll get a fat butt. If it tilts this way, you'll end up with a fat lip. You want it perpendicular to the table at the base. Okay, so I'm going to switch this glove because this one will have the orange on it. This one's still fine. And then I'm going to get to the magenta. I'm not going to do anything with that right now. I'll hit them both with the torch in a couple of minutes when I'm done with this one. So just want to make sure it's still mixed pretty good. And this one does have a little dot of black glitter or something, so I'm going to try and catch that and pick it out at some point right there. It's been in there since I started mixing it, but it's easier just to fish it back off the cup sometimes. And if these don't color change enough to my liking after this coat, I will end up doing a third round the same way as this round. I will do the cheek in that layer as well, just like this one, just to keep it consistent. So I won't show you that part of the process. And I think this one's going to get water slides, so I'm not going to do that in this video. This video is strictly for the solar drops review. So I will do, because I don't think I've done a video on water slide yet. So I will come back probably tomorrow sometime and do a whole separate video on water slide on this one. Because I am going to use a clear water slide. So we'll see how that looks under the color change as well. Or over the color change, I should say. It'll be different. Alright. That's all out of the cup now. I'm going to get it smoothed on. And then I'm going to get that little piece. Get my sweatshirt back out of the way. And this one is definitely tilting down, so I will definitely get it leveled back up. Alright. I just hit my back of my glove on the orange. So I'm going to take that glove off just because I'm done with it. I'm just going to grab a little stick and see if I can't. There we go. Perfect. Make a little point on it. I'm going to wait for that little speck to come around again. Perfect. I'm just going to double check and make sure there's nothing else on either one I need to remove. Do be careful when you do that method, because sometimes you can end up with a little wood chip in your cup. But I am just going to quick hit these with the heat gun for bubbles, keep it moving. And I will let these spin until they are at least dry to the touch before I can get them outside to test them. I do still have one little mark on this cup that I can see through when it comes around again. So I'm either going to have to get crafty with the decal on this one or keep doing coats till it covers, but I think I can cover that with a decal and it'll be fine. It's just a little faint gray mark. So I will be back when these are dried to the touch. Okay, so it's actually sunny today, so I'm going to go out into the sun, and they are turning super quick. Hopefully you can see them. It's so bright I can't really see the screen. But orange and the magenta. Just kind of watching them to see what parts change, what parts don't, if there's any problems. Like there's a little spot there on the magenta, and some of the edge didn't take on both of them. So I may give them a third coat. Didn't really want to because I don't want them to get too thick, but I think they're gonna need it.